Thank you. I'm going to call this meeting of the Planning Commission, March 27th, 2023 to order. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes from February 27th. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
Also move.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
You have to do it second, Brian. Martina beat you to the punch. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of February 27th, 2023. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Our next order of business is to hear from our planning county planners. First on the agenda is the Carroll County planner, Hannah.
Yes. The citizens'
Oh, I'm
comments.
sorry. I'm sorry. Hold on, Hannah. Trying to get this meeting over.
You're trying to speed it along.
Yes, yes. Are there any citizens' comments? These are comments that are for items not on the agenda.
Thank you.
Are there any?
Anyone?
Seeing none, we'll move on. Now, Han, we'll talk to you. Oh, I signed that letter, by the way.
Okay,
John,
perfect.
okay.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. Sorry for my absence last month, was feeling under the weather, but some updates since then. We're having another public workshop for our economic development study at Exploration Commons on April 27th at 5 p.m. We had one originally in February, and this will be a second one, just looking for citizen input on the constraints that they see in Carroll County as far as economic development, where we can grow and things like that. The Transportation Master Plan is continuing to work through our County Planning Commission. They presented the Plan Major Streets and Connections from Mount Airy at their March 21st meeting. Once it goes through Planning Commission, then it'll be forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners. The priority letter sent to the state has Maryland 27 on it as a priority, the 5th priority. That was approved and signed by the Board of County Commissioners this past Thursday, and it will be forwarded to the state for delegate signatures. The triennial update is currently underway to update the Carroll County Water and Sewer Master Plan. This is going to be introduced to Planning Commission this Wednesday at their March 29th meeting. And then after that, it'll be forwarded to the county commissioners once it goes through Planning Commission and all those meetings. So it won't be anytime soon, but through the months. And there will be no spring amendment for the Water and Sewer Master Plan because of the annual update.
Okay.
Are there any questions?
Any questions for Hannah? Okay, thank you.
Have a good meeting.
Next up is our representative from Frederick County, Justin Berker.
Hey, Justin.
Hi there.
Hi.
So the only real new news that I have is the South Frederick Corridor's long vision plan for the existing commercial and industrial land south of the city of Frederick.
Is the microphone on?
Yep. Okay.
Okay, there.
The long-range vision for the existing commercial and industrial land south of the city of Frederick along Maryland 355 and Maryland 85 with modifications has been approved to send to the state for 60-day review. In old news, the Sugarloaf Rural Heritage Overlay District has received more public comment and is continuing to be reviewed. The Gordon Mill plan for 435 single-family homes and 175 townhomes has been tabled for the next meeting, and they're still going through the deliberation phase. And then Pears Landing, which was the property that failed to be annexed into the town of Mount Airy. That's still waiting for revisions and is kind of still at the same state that it was last time we met.
The Wriggler property?
Yes.
Okay. What was the property you were talking about before with the townhouses and the single-family homes?
Oh, that was the Gordon Mill development,
Gordon, okay.
Gordon Mill.
and that's up in Newmarket.
Gorman or Gordon?
Gordon,
Gordon Mill.
Okay.
Up in Newmarket. Where exactly up in Newmarket?
it's right off Ligonor.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, thank
And
you.
you said that's been tabled? now?
Yeah, they've,
waiting for something?
it's going on to the 4th meeting now.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Since you're the new representative from Frederick to visit us and keep us updated,
Bill, can you pull your mic just a little closer?
one of the concerns we have had, gosh, for the last 10 to 15 years, has been the rate of development, the rate of growth of the southeast quadrant of the county. And during, gosh, the last 10 to 15 years, by far the largest growth was occurring in that quadrant, which was putting some pressure on our community. And we're concerned about that more and more density creeping this way. So if possible, we'd love to hear an update, kind of a big picture in terms of, where the major, if that's shifted, if it's a different quadrant at this point, or if you still see a lion's share of the outside of the city growth being in proximity to Mount Airy.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Justin, just for clarity, again, going back to Gordon Mill over to our Weston Newmarket, exactly where is that effort? Is it at the preliminary sketch phase?
Yes, it's at the preliminary plan, and I know it was on the agenda for the site plan review, but I think there are 4 plans at the next meeting, so I don't think the site plan, if this one would get approved, would be at this next meeting, but I'm not sure. I don't think the agenda's been released yet for that meeting.
Okay, so it hasn't gone to public hearing yet? It's still within the Planning Commission at the county?
Yes, it's still at all the public comment has been gone through. They're just at the deliberation phase of conditions and whatnot with that plan.
Okay, thank you.
So when you say that, Justin, I just want to clarify. Do you know if it got concept plan approval or it hasn't gotten concept plan approval?
I believe it was a while back, the concept plan was.
Concept has been done.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's been planned. Like,
Yeah.
now it's just the final plan. So the pre-concept sketch plan is indicative of the MXD, MXUCC. The plan going through Frederick County is not going to be subjected to that pre-concept sketch plan. It's going to come in as a concept plan. It'll come in as a preliminary final, and then that would be when it would get its final approval from their planning commission, from Frederick County.
If I can follow up, then if we're at that stage, then the county's doing adequate public facilities assessments? Or is that yet to be done?
I believe it was all done.
All done?
Yep.
It was probably done at the concept plan stage, and then it'll have to be reevaluated at the final
Final
plan
plan.
stage,
I see.
typically. I don't, never work with Frederick County in that respect.
Okay, thank you, Justin.
Madam Chair, I just got one quick question for Justin. I think it's more the city of Frederick I'm going to ask about, but maybe you know. The Frederick Brickworks property, is that in the city of Frederick or is that in Frederick County?
That is in the city of Frederick.
Okay.
And I know they have a plan with existing zoning, and then the city of Frederick is also working on a form-based code, so I think the developer is trying to find out which one is more financially in the best interest of them, so.
Of that property, okay. So, I just thought, because someone mentioned form-based code, I read reading about it in the paper and stuff, I just would like to know a little bit more about it, but I think you've answered enough since it's the city of Frederick, not the county, you don't have much, you're not into the depths of that one yet. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the planner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the introduction, discussion, and recommendation to the Town Council of 806 Park Avenue. They're asking for a rezoning request under the change or mistake from R3 to CC. Do you want to do the staff comments first, Sean?
Sure, I will let you know that I did receive one phone call from a resident who was 98 years old and was unable to attend the meeting.
Okay,
Who wanted to express her dissatisfaction with approving the rezoning request. She backs right up to this property. And we did also receive this morning, which I gave to you in a printed copy, at the back of your packets, or actually on your plate, of additional comments that came in from residents opposing the rezoning.
okay, thank you.
You get to step out in the hallway.
So we'll hear from the applicant.
Yeah, good evening. Clark Schaefer, 73 East Main Street, here on behalf of Dr. and Mrs. O'Brien, Mike and Nancy O'Brien. I have with me David Thaler, who's an engineer and land planner, and is working on the matter with us. I'm going to assume you've read the petition, so I'm not going to read it for you. I will say that I believe that the change argument and the mistake argument are very strong here, and I believe that that finding is a key one that then allows you and the mayor and council to proceed to the $64,000 question, which is it appropriate? Does it make sense? Is it in the interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the town of Mount Airy to change this zoning from R3 to CC? We clearly believe it is and does, and we've laid out those grounds in our petition also. You know, there's that famous overused saying of what are the three most important things in real estate, and what are the three most important things in zoning? It's location, location, and location. Where is this property located? On 27 at Park Avenue with Twin Arch, one of the most heavily traveled areas in the town. It's the only property that is not used for commercial or industrial purposes at that intersection. And furthermore, the two properties across 27 are large commercially used properties, and they have changed. Now, this property was land use designated for commercial prior to 2013, and there was a big hubbub about no, don't do that. And it was changed then. And it probably, I wasn't here in 2013, I was alive, but I wasn't here. Why? Well, when you're a planner, what do you look at? You look at location. You look at on that road. That was a commercially used property from the 50s for obvious reasons. It's access. Now, if you look, you know, and if you look at the R3 zoning, you know, and of course this is what you are doing and should do, and you look at the CC zoning. Okay, let's look at R3. You want 3, 5 houses on there? Is that what, that's what it's zoned for? You know, a couple duplexes or 3 singles? Can you imagine? Would you want to live there? Would you want to do, you think it'd be a nice residential development at that location? You've heard you know the impacts on this property. And furthermore, this property, you're going to hear to the contrary, I know, because it's not my first rodeo, that no, this ruins our residential neighborhood. I don't think it does, but I mean, it's easy for me to say. And I will say this, when the O'Briens, when that property was first bought and used by the O'Briens, there was a nice forest behind it. Not there now. And so I believe that we have met the base for the rezoning, and I believe you should exercise, and I urge you to exercise your discretion to recommend in favor of this rezoning, and we will then proceed with or without your recommendation, obviously, to the council and put on our formal case at that time. with, the formal evidentiary rules that apply to those proceedings. Dave, I've asked David to take a little quick look at the master plan. Well, look at the master plan. David, do you have a brief comment?
Sure. Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, my name's Dave Thaler. I'm the president of D.S. Thaler and Associates, which is a long-established civil engineering and planning company in Baltimore, actually right at the other end of 70, ironically enough. Our office is right at 695 and 70. I've been coming up here with much pleasure for many years. I guess my claim to fame is I won the award as the top professional engineer in the United States in 2019. And basically by doing land use issues all around the region and all around the country. I've been asked to take a quick look at the plan to see if it supports the request. I believe it does. To just quote a few excerpts, the town will pursue a continued revitalization as well as a quality infill and redevelopment of office and, emphasis added, retail space along the corridors leading to the downtown. Next excerpt. The master plan focuses on the redevelopment of existing commercial areas as well as the development of infill areas to increase the desired commercial amenities downtown while promoting pedestrian-friendly commercial development along the larger commercially zoned corridors of the town. So the master plan clearly wants to re-emphasize improving the commercial developers of the town. I would note for the commission that this really is a commercial property that we're talking about today. The O'Briens have lived there for 34 years where they've operated their veterinarian facility. But before that, it was a masonry contractor, and before that, it was a Studebaker repair shop. And frankly, I don't know 27 as well as you guys do, but as near as I can tell, there is no closer residence to 27 anywhere along 27 than the O'Brien home. And I think quite a few things have changed in the years that they've been here. First of all, I don't have to tell everybody that the traffic on 27 has increased between 2004 and 2021 by 65%. Okay, you guys all know that. The post office, some would say is zoned residential. It is. Post offices don't really need a zoning, but it's been a commercial facility for as long as the post office has been there. And I don't have the data on this particular post office, but in the last 3 years, package deliveries nationally are up by about 2 billion packages. And so in general, the package deliveries are up about 40%. And the trucks come in all night, apparently, into this a post office. And so I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that the O'Brien property really is a commercial property. It's, and always has been, and it's simply they live above the store, okay? And they've really been, I don't have to tell you, what assets they have been to the town of Mount Airy. You just have to look at the caboose next door, which I was just admiring on my way in that Dr. O'Brien worked on. What I think would be dispositive here, first, what council has mentioned is this is not a binary issue. It's not, are you going to rezone it, or is there going to be nothing there? The O'Briens are not spring chickens. Dr. O'Brien is going to have to retire from veterinary practice sooner or later, and then what happens? Okay, the chances, I think there are already probably 5 veterinary practices in Mount Airy. The chances of getting another one here, I don't think are very good. So this would have to go for residential. And what I would ask you, ladies and gentlemen, is this where you would want to live? Would you buy a house here right on 27? And right now, there's kind of a large field between the O'Brien little parking pad and 27. But what you probably can't see is that State Highway Administration owns about a third of that. And so one day, 27 will be widened, and 27 will come closer to the house than it is now. And I submit to you that I wouldn't want to live there, you wouldn't want to live there, and that the current, and the real option is for more houses to be built there. Probably you could get 3 or 5 or maybe a couple pairs of semi-detached on. And I think what is appropriate for the town, this is a lovely little town, I love coming up here, is a commercial use that supports the historic character of this town, and that's what I would urge you to consider. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
At this time, do we have any questions from the commission members?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
Good evening. I would probably start with Mr. Thaler, since you just spoke. I don't think what you said really meets the standard for change mistake. You were citing the master plan, the 2013 master plan, but during that master plan, we, the Planning Commission, declined to change the zoning to community commercial during that planning process. So it doesn't matter all the other things in it because we made a decision not to change it in 2013.
Could I respond to that?
No, you can wait. Yeah. It's my turn now.
All right.
As far as being the only property on the west side of Route 27 at the intersection, that's what I wrote. It's the only property on the west side. So all the other properties at the intersection are commercial, yes. It's the only property on the west side of 27. As we probably have in the record from the 2013 master plan, there's documentation that before the commercial development happened on the east side, that was the demarcation. Route 27 was the demarcation between the east side would be commercial, the west side would be residential. That's why everything there is residential, including Dr. O'Brien's house and the post office. You can't keep a post office from, it's a special exception. They have the right, the town couldn't stop the post office from locating there. We have, in the last time that Dr. O'Brien and Nancy O'Brien were here, we offered to attempt to create so they don't quite meet neighborhood professional. We offered to try to create a text amendment so that perhaps that property could be neighborhood professional, which is the zone that is appropriate to abut, the residential housing behind them. But so far, they were not interested in that. I just want to go through a couple of the things that were in this report. So just in terms of now, our attorney isn't here, our town attorney isn't here, but even in terms of procedurally, I'm not sure that when someone, so the O'Briens they put in a request to become commercial during the current master planning process, which is ongoing. We're not even through with it. And they were declined. So I'm not sure that, and this is something, Tom would have to answer for sure, we'd have to research it, whether you can be denied during the same planning process before it's even finished to come in and say that there's a change in mistake in the middle of the planning process because you didn't get what you wanted through the planning process. That just doesn't really sound quite right, but we'll wait.
Denied if the process is still open.
I was going to correct you. It hasn't been denied. We have a
It was
potential.
an interim denial.
Right, you're not in favor of a recommendation.
Not
Correct.
recommendation.
Yes.
Sorry.
Not
My-
a decision.
My apologies. There were some that we made favorable recommendations and some that we made unfavorable. It was an unfavorable recommendation. Now I just want to go to your page 1, I guess, of your the legal argument. So the corridor study in 2016, I mean, that didn't change anything. So the last master plan was completed and signed off in 2013. So just because a corridor study was done in 2016, that didn't change anything. It just documented what was going on. And also, I'll just wait till I get there.
It documented a large change in traffic volume is what it documented.
Well, I was gonna wait, but since you brought that up, I can't imagine that anyone would think that this is unforeseen, that there'd be more traffic as a town grows in a location where there's no public transportation. Now, I'd be more than happy to see public transportation here, but a lot of people apparently would not, and we don't have any. So I don't think that's at all unexpected. And it's not a change. I mean, we've got the same commercial on the west or the east side that we did in 2013. And so, yeah, the traffic increasing is not the type of change that is. And in terms of, well, let me just wait till I make sure I'm not missing anything. The Beck property, as you know, like somehow that's going to make a big change. The Beck property has been on the master plan for decades. I mean, it wasn't like 2013 was the first time that the Beck property was was in a master planning document. I don't have the old plans in front of me, but I know that I've been on the commission since 2012, and it was already very talked about and viable and options. So just because now it's getting closer to a possibility, that doesn't change anything, and nothing's actually happened yet. Nothing's happening with Harrison Life Share. We haven't seen anything in over a year. So, and then all this stuff about all this traffic, it's like, I don't understand how all this traffic that's increased impacts everyone. It's not just Dr. Nancy O'Brien's house or it's not just the Park Avenue that goes by them. All the residents on Park Avenue, all the people in Wildwood, everyone is experiencing the traffic. How would changing their property to commercial make that better for everyone else? It would make it worse. So I don't understand that argument. As far as the carnival grounds, I voted against it being commercial, but it is commercial. But there's not that much activity. There was always activity. There was always commercial activity at the carnival grounds. So I don't see that. If it's increased, it's been very minor and certainly not any change to anything to meet the change mistake standard. Again, you're talking about the exacerbated intersections, so we want to make it worse. We want to exacerbate it even more. And let's see, that might be it. Let's see. Zoning authorities and gross much change tone. Oh, just going back to not anticipating things changing. I just think that's not accurate. Okay, I think I'm done for now.
Anyone else? You can rebuttal everybody once we get done, if that's okay.
That's okay. I don't have much rebuttal, just to say that I understand you're against the request from that statement. I also understand that you don't think there's change or mistake. You didn't address at all whether or not you think the zoning is appropriate, but
I don't think it's appropriate. I do not think it's appropriate.
I figured that.
Because it's the residential side of Route 27. Sorry I didn't make that clear. The property backs up to Wildwood, which is a senior residential community. I mean, that right there, makes it pretty obvious that it's a residential area.
Just one more comment is that people that live or live on 27 are affected more, I would argue, are affected more greatly by increases on 27 and ambulance calls and emergency calls and accidents at that intersection than people that don't live there. So just a rebuttal to that.
I live a few doors down on North Main Street from the fire station. I hear sirens every night, lots of them, very loud. So, and I don't live on 27, I live on Main Street. I just wanted to make one other comment that, because I think you have somewhere in here about this being a commercial business for all these years. Well, They were granted a special exception, and, you know, the neighbors signed off on it years ago to say, that's all we're agreeing to. We're not, you know, so this is not a commercial business. It's a special exception. Well, a commercial business as a special exception in a residential zone. And on the side of 27, it should stay residential.
Ralph?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And just as a quick preface for the public here, I'm the alternate commissioner. I can participate in the deliberative process for any agenda item. However, because we have a full commission here tonight, I will not be allowed to vote. But I am able to ask questions. So my first question is, I just want to clarify for the record that when the special exception was granted for commercial use, reading from the code, it says that the Board of Appeals, in passing upon special exception applications, may attach conditions considered necessary to protect the public welfare and the town master plan, and goes on and on and on. So I just want clarity. Were there any such conditions attached to the special exception to allow commercial use?
I do not, I have that in the trunk of my car, that part of the file, but I do not think there were.
Okay.
Well, it was applied for, it was a veterinary application. so-
Understood,
but
understood.
I don't believe there were any conditions attached.
Okay. And to be transparent, I know of none, but I wanted to make sure it was on the record before we go further, because if there were conditions set back when residential got an exception for commercial use, then that would be an important part of this application.
And I'll clear, but I'll clarify. If I'm mistaken, I'll note that in writing to you all, but no conditions.
Okay. My second question has to do with the fact that, again, this is R3 with a special exception for commercial use. And as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, on the property, there is a residential use and a home currently, correct? Yes. And does the applicant intend to continue residing in that building on the property?
For now, yes.
So in your application,
Except they're approaching retirement age. So
understood,
they
understood.
have to sell the property and close the practice.
I will say this, if your question is this, I'll answer what I think. There are no current contracts, plans, developers to do any projects on this, okay?
Understood. My point that I'm driving toward with that background is the fact that the applicant is going for commercial zoning, and the only way a residence use or residential use can continue on that property is for then the applicant, if successful with commercial zoning, then makes another application through the Planning Commission to the Board of Appeals to allow residential usage. And I believe that is correct.
That's not correct. He would become a non-conforming use if, and it is an if, the CC didn't allow residential.
Any other questions here?
Dr. Brown, you can go to that mic there if you'd like, please.
We're not, I haven't asked for public comment yet.
Okay.
Wait for the public comment, please. Okay, but you can, I'm asked for the commissioners first, and then I'll go to the public. You can be the first person up.
Is the applicant also?
I know. Are there any other questions? Okay, just a minute. Just a minute. You can be next. I understand, Dave, you can be next.
I'm going to go get the decision. I've got it.
Should we pause until he comes?
No, we're going to continue.
Well, I do.
Do you, okay, we have questions here.
I'm sorry, I just have one question. If someone could
Make sure
clarify.
you're in the microphone.
Oh, thank you, Leslie. The question about the mistake and change, how, and it was a commercial property, how did it go to residential from?
No, it was a residential given special exception.
The Studebaker and everything, when it was back?
Some of that was done before zoning,
Before what we have now?
yes.
Okay.
But it was done through zoning. All it was done through zoning.
The special, okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
I had one question. You said there's 5 vets in Mount Airy. I only count 3.
I know of 2.
Well, Doc O'Brien and then,
I mean, other than Dr.
yeah, there's three.
There's three.
All right, Dave, I'm going to ask for the public. When Clark comes back, we'll get that information.
Am I excused?
Yes. I feel like a teacher. Did you want to say anything else, Doc?
Local vets, country vet on 144,
He's not in the town.
local vets.
He's not in the town. Okay,
Mount Airy Veterinary Associates, Ridgeville Boulevard. Mount Airy Animal Hospital, South Main Street. Myself, there's 2 or 3 mobile vets. You go up to where Country Kennel used to be, not in town, still a competitor. That's a veterinary hospital now. Taylorsville Veterinary Hospital, Unionville Veterinary Hospital. It's a lot of vets. As far as, there are restrictions on my special exception. 1 vet, 1 helper vet. I can't remember how many employees. There were some other, the size of the building could not exceed 1,200 square feet, I think. Parking, 16 spaces. That's all I can remember off the top of my head.
okay. He's going to get the things, so we'll see. Thank you. Dave?
I have the
Microphone, please.
And name and address.
Dave Pyatt, 705 Park Avenue. The findings and decision for this case by the Board of Appeals had up to V, so that's 23 conditions, I guess, instead of numbers. But the applicant is proposing to convert the 1,200 square foot. Some of this is probably a little bit changed. The property is approximately 35,000 square feet. No new buildings are proposed to be constructed. Generally, okay, this is the good one. Generally, the neighborhood is residential in character to the north and west, vacant and planned residential to the south, and a mixture of planned commercial and other traffic-intensive uses to the east across Maryland 27. This is item D of the grant. The zoning patterns include commercial, industrial, and rural carnival grounds zones to the east, as well as R1 and R2 residential zoning to the south, west, and north. The board noted that the existing property has been used for various home occupation type businesses activities in the past, so they did acknowledge that. The board finds that based upon existing and planned land uses in the immediate neighborhood, the concept of a limited use veterinarian clinic would be generally compatible at this location.
excuse me, I missed, what's he reading from?
He's reading from the Board of Appeals findings, 1988.
Yeah,
Case number?
yeah.
October 5th, 1987, Board of Appeals minutes?
This is the actual findings. The board also finds that all town service, water, sewer, fire are currently provided to the property and are adequate to serve based upon no new buildings, wells, walls, or fences being constructed, and the fact that a landscape buffer will be provided. The board finds that the proposal would not impair the use and value of adjoining lands. based upon estimated traffic generation and the existing conditions and future improvements at the Park Avenue, Maryland 27 intersection. The board finds that a limited use veterinarian clinic would be acceptable at this location and would not cause commercial traffic to use residential streets, since Maryland 27 is an arterial street and Park Avenue is a collector street connecting to the downtown area. He's a professional veterinarian. The applicant will comply with all the activities. The board finds that the applicant will also comply with the new requirements that one person other than the professional veterinarians may be employed full-time. Parking spaces, I don't want to take up too much of your time. The other thing is that I was on the council until 2012 during the master plan, and I continued to follow it. And there was a lot of controversy over the carnival grounds and Dr. O'Brien's property. Both wanted commercial. And I have the minutes of the meeting, I think September 14th of 2014, and it was a vigorous discussion, let's put it mildly, and most of you were there, a very vigorous discussion. But after the dust settled and the master plan was approved, it was clearly, and I think it's sort of subtly written into the master plan, but Bill was there, I think Leslie, you started. It was like, okay, this is the dividing line. But if you read the original proposal, you can't come to any other conclusion. You know, it was, you know, right on 27. It was, it is what it was, and it's amazing that since 2000 or 1985, not much has really happened. I mean, it's the same old, you know. Okay. So, you know.
Can we make sure we have a copy of that in our record? I mean, we might from 10 years ago, but we should, yeah, but maybe we could get another one just in case.
I sent,
Okay, great.
September 24th, 2014, I sent to the mayor and council the decision, the minutes, and a transcript of the testimony from that hearing, because at the public hearing, Mr. Pyatt mischaracterized the decision. So I needed to correct the record here. He stated that there
Can you
was
use
an
the
agreement.
microphone?
Yeah, we're not, you need a microphone because we need to record. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Pyatt at that public hearing stated that there was an agreement that to the effect that the property would resort to residential when Dr. O'Brien stopped practicing veterinary medicine. There was no such agreement, and I presented this evidence, which includes a copy of the decision. So if you want this, I could rerun a copy of this.
Yeah, we can put that in. Yeah, we'd like a
I
copy.
don't want to put it in now, it's my only copy.
No. I mean, we can have a copy made, or you can give us your extra copy. Yeah. But the thing is, I mean, the property is still residential. I mean, it's still zoned residential, so I'm not sure what.
Well, I'm not sure why we're spending so much time on this, because the whole point of the exercise and the reason we're here is that the law of the state of Maryland, including your ordinances, provide that you can look at zoning and change things. Now, you're telling me I'm not going to change it because I think it was right the first time or whatever.
Well, I don't think you met the standard.
Okay.
Even close. That's, yeah.
Are there any other comments from the, okay? Dave, I gave you a little extra time because you were reading the findings, but I'm going to limit it to 2.5 minutes.
Sheila Pyatt, 705 Park Avenue, and we have lived on Park Avenue for 40 years. We were part of when O'Brien came in, went to the Rhineckers, who were a very righteous couple. We thought we would just, allow, he was young, we would allow him to come in, but with the stipulation that it goes back to residential, and that's what everything that we have when it went to the Board of Appeals, that's it. And if I know the Reineckers were still around, they'd be very, very upset. We did this with a good will. Anyway, all of the property along Park Avenue, including Dr. O'Brien's, Windy Knolls, the Senior Complex, Beck Drive, and Marydale, has always been zoned residential. Dr. O'Brien was granted a waiver to use a veterinary clinic, but the property itself remained residential, R3. It is also clear from the reading of the original Board of Appeals decision that it was intended to remain residential indefinitely. His request is no different than a similar request by any other resident in the general area with R3 zoning asking for commercial zoning. We moved here in 1983, and a Mennonite family lived where the O'Briens are living. Dr. O'Brien has little grounds for a mistake since it is likely the Studebaker shop predated town zoning of 1958. He asked for and got his special exception. The immediate area has not changed since the last master plan, and as a general rule, more residence units are slowly being added along Park Avenue, admittedly several blocks away. As real estate prices continue to climb, it is expected more such houses will be added. The Planning Commission is adamantly opposed to residential and commercial, community commercial zoning abutting. And one of the main themes in this current master plan is to have a transition zone, neighborhood professional in between community commercial and residential, thus granting a one-lot request to go from residential, regardless of the exception granted, to community commercial would set an undesirable and potentially legally binding precedent and completely at odds with the new master plan. We understand part of the argument for this case involves mixed zoning, some commercial and residential for the Beck property, almost a half mile away. This property has little relevance since too far away. It would have more effect on other regions of the town and faces an uncertain future because of the PFAS water contamination and strong citizen opposition.
Can you wrap it up?
Yeah, I will. One more paragraph. We have talked a bit about this over a year ago when Dr. O'Brien applied for CC. I don't see all that much more traffic than when it was built in the 1980s. I talked to the postmaster a year ago about speculation regarding the new post office. He said there were no current plans to build a new one. The original owner sold it to a new owner who lives in the area. As you know, the Postal Service has guaranteed special exceptions, right to put where they feel suitable. And the Windy Knolls, senior housing, and all the other units on Park Avenue and Beck hasn't changed. But honestly, in this area of FedEx and Amazon delivery vehicles, I think it may have lightened the load on the post office. There's a stream of traffic, but no real ups and long lines at the post office. It is still R designated. And then I wonder if by some chance you give this commercial, what stops the other people from coming in and saying, I want commercial? I live on Park Avenue. And then you'll have South Main Street, because that's exactly what happened, where the inn is and all the houses. A lot of you young people were not living here at the time. We were. So where you have California Tortilla all the way down to the inn, that was all residential. Mrs. Moxley, who lived and where the inn is, lives right behind him. And I know she gets very upset, and all the seniors get very upset every time this comes up. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yes, sir. Please state your name and where you live.
Good evening. My name is Earl Henderson. I live at 803 Merry-Go-Round Way. I'm one of the seniors that's very upset over this. I talked to my good friend Alameda Moxley, and she's adamantly opposed to this. Her property abuts Dr. Parks. But quite frankly, I'm surprised why we're here tonight. March 28th, 2022 was the night this Dr. O'Brien's property was discussed once again and soundly defeated. I like the point Sheila made that if one goes commercial, other owners on Park Avenue will want their property to go commercial, and the people on Merry-Go-Round, especially where I live, will be swamped with retail establishments all over the place. There'll be a high level of noise and much heavier traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Okay, my name is David Park, and I live at 807 Merry-Go-Round Way. It's just kitty corner from Dr. Bryan's lot, I guess. Dr. Bryan has been a very good neighbor. I've lived here for 10 years. But anyway, he's been a very good neighbor for 10 years. It never causes any disturbance of any kind. But if you change the zoning to commercial, we don't know what that commercial is going to be. It could be anything, and I could kind of make up, examples that would be bad, but I don't think I'll bother doing that. Maybe you folks will protect me from that. I do work actively. I work on mathematics. I work most of the day and sometimes far into the night, and communicate with other people on the web. So I look for peace and tranquility. I know that you can't have that in a perfect form, but we don't have to increase the noise and increase the disturbance. We could try to fight against that. So I urge you to keep it residential. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please state your name and your address.
Eric Diggs, live in 15130 Black Anchor Road, not in the town, kind of far out because I didn't want to be in the town. And I built a place out there in '85. I've known Dr. O'Brien for 40 years. And only thing I can contest to is the man's heart. And I cannot see changes not happening in this town because I've seen so many of them. There was one time I could drive my Jeep up Buffalo Road, and I loved it because the snow would pile across the road, and it just felt like I was out there in the wild, They built a whole bunch of homes there, and now it's just driving normal, That was a change. And there's been so many changes done in this town. And I think you guys have done a great job in maintaining an integrity and a look of Mount Airy. And there's a uniqueness to the place. And I know that Dr. O'Brien, the heart of this man, the soul of this man, will maintain that integrity also. And I would trust him to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hello again, Planning Commission. 405 Windy Knoll Drive. So tonight I come to you, at least on this topic, not just as a CAMO member, but as a neighbor to Doc O'Brien. I'm urging the plan.
State your name too, I'm sorry.
Oh, Nicole Moon, sorry.
It's for the record.
I know. You all know my name, but I'm urging the Planning Commission to deny Mr. O'Brien's request to rezone his property on Park Avenue to CC. Being as I live in the townhomes across the street, From Mr. O'Brien's property, I know firsthand how much traffic flows down Park Avenue from both directions. In the morning in particular, the bus stop that my 8-year-old gets on the bus at Windy Knoll and Park Avenue is routinely ran by motorists, at least once a month. We have to look both ways multiple times. A little girl crosses the street to get on the bus, and she's almost been hit. We've asked Mount Airy Police to come and station there a few times because it's that bad. Most of the time, they're speeding to make the green light, or sometimes the sun is in their eyes. Sometimes even at the post office, they disregard the bus and they turn left. And you're like, you can't do that. We've had to ask, the traffic situation from the post office traffic at Windy Knoll and Park Avenue itself cannot handle a commercial business at the corner, no matter what that business may be. The traffic flow is already difficult for those coming and going from the vet property, hence the no blocking driveway sign. I've seen multiple times people don't listen to the sign, they block the driveway. I can't imagine how any commercial would work there. Just because you bought and own the property, and no offense, Doc O'Brien, doesn't mean that you have the right to devalue and change the fabric of other homes that live on that street. In addition, and perhaps more importantly, is the fact this Planning Commission has spent so much deliberation and energy and time on deciding how the transition should be between zones in Mount Airy. According to our master plan and decisions made by this commission, community commercial should not be next to residential zoning. Mr. O'Brien's property is next to an entire street of residential zones. This would set a dangerous precedent for our town and future similar zoning decisions. MXD is MXD, and that zoning allows for this kind of mismatch. This is not MXD, and should therefore follow the same guidelines as everywhere else in town. Community commercial should not be next to residential. Park Avenue is not a retail entryway into downtown, it's residential. The post office cannot be considered retail. It provides a needed service to the town. It has been declining in traffic recently after COVID, as I've personally noticed, and I'm grateful for, except for Christmas season. That's a different ballgame. But between the traffic issues, dangerous potential intersection issues, and the fact that CC cannot abut R3 zoning, I urge this commission to please deny the request to rezone the property. Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
Need to correct one misstatement of fact that was made, which is that rezoning this property would constitute a legally binding precedent. That's not accurate. That's not true. Every zoning action is considered unique because every property is considered unique. And you today are looking at the individual attributes of the O'Brien property. If someone else wanted a rezoning, you would look at the individual attributes of that property. And if it were in the middle of a neighborhood, I wouldn't be representing them because it would be a non-starter. This property is on Route 27 at Park Avenue, across from, surrounded by 3 commercial properties. So so anyway, it's not a legally binding precedent to rezone this property.
At this time, I'm going to ask the Planning Commission if there is anyone who's willing to make a motion.
So nobody else wants to?
Oh, Steve, I'm sorry, I keep missing you over there. I got to wave your hand.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to deny the request to rezone at this time.
It's been moved and seconded that we deny, well, we're going to give an unfavorable recommendation to the town council. At this time, I am going to abstain from voting. I do live on that street, so I am not going to vote. So all those in favor of the motion as stating the unfavorable recommendation to the town council, please signify by saying aye. Leslie seconded. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
I'm sorry, I was an aye for the.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. So I got the 1, 2, 3. Okay. The motion is to send it to the town council with an unfavorable recommendation.
And that was 5-0, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
One abstention. I'm sorry. One abstention. They'll deny it again.
Clerk,
Okay.
Clerk, can you email me that, or have us, we can make a copy really quickly if you don't mind, either way. Either way, it's up to you. No, I'm not saying email tonight, no. Okay, that's fine, that's fine. No, I wasn't saying tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is the introduction and possible approval of J&J Trash Above Ground Fuel Storage Tank. Is the applicant or representative for the applicant here? Oh, I didn't even see you sitting back there.
Hiding away.
I'm going to say, Ron's not here. What are we going to do?
What would a meeting be without me?
I don't think you need to read anything on this. It's just a one-pager at the bottom.
A quick description, really quick. So this was in front of you guys, was forwarded to the Board of Appeals for the special exception for the fuel storage tank above ground. During the final review through permitting, and Ron can attest to this, and I have a copy downstairs, that the fire marshal said that the location that was previously approved was in too close proximity to the building, so the new location is away from the building, meeting the code requirements. So that's the only reason why it's being brought back to you, just so you're sort of aware of the relocation of that approval that you would get pushed on to Board of Appeals.
Okay. So
So move 40 feet away from the building.
But everything else.
everything else stayed the same.
Yeah, I mean, the building's already built, everything's already there, it's just this fuel storage.
So what we need then is to, the motion needs to move that we approve the amended,
Site plan.
The Board of Appeals approved the prior special exception, right?
They approved the special exception. The location is not
Yes.
their
So,
purview.
so we don't have to worry about it?
no, we don't have to send it back to them. Okay. Any questions?
Excuse me, Madam Chair. So just for clarity, after, and if the site plan, amended site plan is approved, then that gives you the go-ahead, John, to issue work permits to begin construction of that above-ground storage facility. Is that
Once bonding's taken and that kind of stuff.
right? Gotcha. Thank you.
Do I hear a motion to approve the amended? Yeah, Steve?
Is there something that could show me where the previous one was approved and where the current one, compare the two, just out of curiosity?
I don't have a diagram, but you'll note that there is a storm sewer easement running, actually, it would be to the left of the proposed location, a storm drain. We had actually set that tank between that easement near the building as a result of the requirement of having more separation because of the size of the tank. We had to move it, and again, moving it would be on the other side of the storm drain easement because we couldn't construct that over the storm drain easement. So it's basically on the other side.
So Steve, to your question, the previous one was located on the east side of the rear of the building. So that narrow part of the building, it was sort of semi-attached to the building. That's where the previous location was. It's not shown on that plan because if you tried to show that on top of where the new location is, it's too much data. That would just become a mess.
Okay.
And at half scale, it's hard to see anyway.
And this one is, has more detail in terms of now the canopy's been designed. There is where the trucks fill, call it like a little bowl. So make sure that spills, if anything spills out of the tank, it can be contained right there.
And again, this plan will have a containment wall that'll hold a punctured fuel cell if that were to happen. They're also providing spill containment pods out there as well. So if something does spill, they have the equipment to hopefully contain that spill before it gets out of control. Yep, it's got an overhead cover as well.
Any other questions?
Sound like improvements.
Yep.
More details, but improvements, correct.
Is there a motion now to approve the amended site plan approval?
I would so move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the amended site plan approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is the introduction and discussion and recommendation to Town Council of Ordinance 2023-08. This is a creation of standards for the Planning Commission to grant an open space inadequacy waiver under Section 25-5G, parens 2. We have all received an email from Councilman Demoter. He is the one that has submitted this. I'll open it for discussion. Yes. Yes, Ron.
Ron Thompson, Van Mar Associates. Again, as a little bit of history and context in the APFO, this ordinance really came about at the time that we were trying to develop the cold storage site. And there was a worry of 120 apartments on the cold storage site, not having enough open space, and this confusion of a waiver and the more detailed ordinance came about. As I view the ordinance, it becomes kind of a negative, positive type of discussion, reinforcing that each time a development project provides open space on the project, they have to come back and ask for a waiver, and people perceive that when you ask for a waiver, you're asking for something that you are not doing, and when we are doing it. So therefore, the second part is, hey, it'll increase my fees to have to write everything down here, but I don't really want to have to charge people to do a justification for something which we're already doing. What I would propose, and I do have a handout for you to consider, is that you simplify this ordinance that basically says if you are providing the required open space on your property for residential development, that you then are in compliance with the APFO for open space, and that the only waiver that would be considered would be a waiver in the downtown zone, particularly when you look along Main Street and Center Street, where you do not have space for open space. So I'll hand that out. I'm not here to debate but I just think that it is a much cleaner process, and particularly for not only you as members of the Planning Commission, but for the public. It erases this perception that we're trying to circumvent the open space ordinance.
It's a much simpler presentation of the objective. And the end result.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Does Steve Demoter have this?
No.
I just brought it in tonight for consideration. Happy to send it. Tom's not here, so I would send it electronically to him and allow it to be forwarded on to whoever in the town.
Hey, Ron, just to clarify that, you are basically, what you're doing is redlining what Steve wrote?
Correct.
Okay.
I took the ordinance, made it into a Word document, and redlined it.
Yeah,
Be enough if I count it correctly. No?
Is there another one there?
yeah, there's a couple more.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
A couple of quick points. I think on behalf of the code, we're being given an amendment from the town council, and according to 98-55.
We're not getting an amendment from the town council. This is just what Mr. Demoter wants us to approve. It's not directly from the town council. It's just from Councilman Demoter.
Okay, so we don't have a 90-day period where we can deliberate on this then?
No, we do. Yes, we do.
Yes,
Absolutely, we do.
We're giving a recommendation.
We're getting a recommendation. We need to give a recommendation back, so we have the time.
Right. So I think we have some time to work on it.
Yes, we do.
Is the point I'm making. Secondly, I believe the spirit from Councilman Demoter was that this was intended, his text was intended to be guidelines to us. Unfortunately, the ordinance that we have in front of it is written in terms of standards, and the language within the proposed text includes language of shall versus may. And so my point being that I believe this was intended to help the commission. I think it was a noble effort to try to provide some framework to conducting the open space deliberations under 25-5, the APFO. But I believe what we have before us is kind of written as a you gotta do it kind of context. So right there, I would offer, and not going any further, I would offer that those are the sorts of things that we would want to work through in kind of, the overview of anything that gives us some steerage as to how to do open space deliberations. That's all I have.
So what I'm hearing is that there could be a motion for postponement for a decision on this.
Wait, so why do we need to postpone when we have 90 days?
Oh.
Well.
I
mean, we have
We
90
don't need
days,
to-
didn't we just
Rather
discuss?
than make a decision tonight.
Yeah, rather than
But
making.
don't we
it-
have 90 days to make a decision?
We do.
Okay. I mean, I guess my thing is, in addition to what Ralph just said, is it seems, and someone said, maybe it was Ron, it seems to be creating a lot of work for us.
Yes.
The volunteers, for an unclear, I mean, I get some streamlined, thing, but we know that when we, and it is confusing, the way the language is, how it's termed as a waiver, when what we're really doing is saying you don't have to add 80 acres to the town because that's our deficit. So we wanted to change something to streamline and make that whole idea more clear. I'd be in favor of that. I'm not in favor of doing something that might just be to create additional obstacles and pretend that the developers are not actually providing the open space that they're required to under the code. So
Yeah, and
I mean, I would be ready to vote to not recommend this tonight, but I don't know if other people are ready to vote on that. But-
You can also recommend with recommendations, possibly with Ron's paperwork. Or
Okay,
you
and
could
then
put-
I'd want to be able to.
Right,
You
I-
want to postpone it until next month.
Wanted you to have.
think we at least need at least another month to review, and to have, I would prefer that Tom be here while we're discussing this as well. So I would say at least another meeting that we need to have to go over this.
Ron, you offer, what I think is a great approach to this in handling it on a one-by-one basis. And we appreciate you coming forward with this.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Ron, before you leave, can you just email a copy of this to John so he can get it to Tom
Yep.
and
Well,
everybody else?
I'll email it to Tom and John tomorrow, so
Okay.
they have the electronic version.
Right, and I'll forward to Scott, Steve
Yeah.
Motors
Yeah.
with Scott.
Okay.
And Larry.
Thank you, Rod.
I don't know if, and I don't remember the names of the two ordinances. It's like, was that way back in 2020? I think it was. So if part of the idea is to undo that, then that, I don't know if that's like part of the goal, because there is the one ordinance that says mixed use doesn't have to do open space. Well, if we say they don't have to.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know if this is trying to address that, but this seems to be applying to any property, not just mixed use.
Right.
So I don't know, it seems to me if that's the goal, then maybe it should be more in tandem with that, but maybe it's not. I don't know.
Well, and I think that's why we need the time to discuss what's going on. So before I get into the business, I want to move I know that you guys discussed at the workshop about the different dates and the times for the Beck property, but I think we need to formally vote for those dates. And we have been supplied here, I guess, so Cecily, did you provide this for us?
Roxanne, just one clarifying thing. At the top of this, what John handed out, it says Mount Airy Fire Company Carnival Grounds Reception Hall. Are we changing the location to the American Legion?
Yes, we have to.
Okay. All right, I'm just saying, the document just still
Yeah,
indicates that.
okay, so, yeah, because there was no Saturdays available this year. I didn't want you to wait till 2024.
No, I just wanted to make sure that it's out there, just in case somebody read this.
Right.
Make sure this is correct, yeah.
Right. So I mean, I don't, you provided this for us. Okay, that's all I needed to know, so.
Well, just one clarification. What's labeled facilitator questions, just to note at the top, it got cut off, but it does say example only. This is
Yes.
actually from the Town of Mount Airy 2018 charrette. We were just providing this as an example of typical facilitator questions, just to clarify that.
That was not deliberate.
It wasn't deliberate?
It wasn't
Okay.
deliberate, I promise.
But will we get the actual charrette questions ahead of time, Cecily?
Yes, in April. Yep.
April? Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
To clarify that the questions here are not related to the Beck charrette at all, correct?
Well.
Well, they could be.
They could be.
But I mean, it's like, what's written on this are not for the Beck charrette per se.
That's correct. We do anticipate that some of,
Yeah, some of the
particularly some of
questions.
the general questions would carry over, but we would have other specific questions that dealt with the Beck.
I just didn't want people to think that
Right,
this
it-
document
exactly.
was for the charrette.
Yeah, that's why when I saw this printed out, I'm like, oh, the main information was cut off.
Yeah,
So
no,
thank you.
I got it, though. We got it. So, thank you for providing this for us. So the only thing I just really wanted to know, to make sure that we get it, above board and everything, is that we just need to vote on the change of the dates.
Well, again, these are the dates that we talked about at the last workshop.
Right.
So we just want to confirm that those dates, everybody is still adequate, because we didn't have a complete workshop. And again, we can't vote on anything in a workshop.
Right.
So I think it's more of just making sure that everybody's aware that on the May the 20th, 1 to 5, there'll be a charrette held at the American Legion at 13304 Prospect Road in Mount Airy. Then on May the 22nd, Monday, 2023, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then May the 23rd, 2023, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then there'll be a break between 6 and 7, and then 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. For a wrap-up. So again, that schedule is in front of you, and this is actually the schedule for the charrette for the
Right.
different days. So
Give
there'll
it-
be
Can you put the date on, can you give us the address of the VFW, because it still says fire company on it?
So the agenda states Beck Public Charrette, American Legion, 13303.
Oh, we don't have that
Prospect
copy.
Road.
We have the one that still
No,
says.
Have this in
he
your
does.
packet.
Okay.
It's
on the agenda.
It's on the agenda at the bottom.
Okay.
I'm just putting it on here, on this paper, because it's not on here.
Hey, John.
Carl,
quick-
you have something to say while I was talking. Sure.
I'm sorry
Go
about
ahead.
that. Before we got too far in, I just wanted, Ron pointed out too, that you said 2 to 6, but it's here is 2 to 5, so on the agenda here. So for Saturday,
Saturday says 1 to 2 and 2 to 5.
so it's 2 to 5, correct?
Yeah, if you look at it, it says there.
Okay, but he mentioned it on.
It says
because-
1 to 5 on my agenda. Is that what you're saying?
Well, the feedback loop number 1, it says for Saturday, it's 2 to 5, but I believe you said 2 to 6 when you were explaining it. So I just wanted to make sure it was
I
2 to
said-
5.
well, I actually said 1 to 5 on Saturday, the 20th, which is 1 to 2 is the overview presentation.
Okay.
And 2 to 5.
Okay.
So I had it right. I said 1 to 5. It's
Yeah.
on the agenda. 1 to 5.
Okay, you just, okay.
Okay, so just get rid of this
6
paper
to
altogether.
10.
Yes.
Just tear this paper up.
Get us
Don't
a
even
no,
look
No,
at it.
that's not correct either.
Are we going to get a new paper?
Not correct either.
What's not?
Still correct, Roxanne.
Okay.
The only thing that's not correct is the date and the address.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's not correct.
All right.
This was not from me. I apologize. This was something that was forwarded to me that I forwarded to you. I should have reviewed it closer.
And are all of them at the American Legion?
Yes, yes. We, and in discussing it with John, when he couldn't come up with the dates with the, for the fire department, I said, we're not, we have to have them all at the same place. It's, you know, it's not going to work, yeah, for continuity. So that's when we went searching.
Okay.
And we appreciate the VFW for allowing us to be in there. So is there a motion that we agree to these dates and times?
I'll make a motion that we agree to these dates and times.
Okay.
Okay, they're all correct on this
Yeah.
paper? Okay.
They're all correct.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded that the dates for the charrette will be held at the American Legion on, as stated in our agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to, Larry, if you want to come up, guess we should have done this before the meeting
We'll
started.
see you in May, if not before then.
Bye.
I think so.
First.
Okay.
Do you want to do it now or after reports?
Can we, 1 second before we move on? So Martina made it first. Brian Beat seconded it?
Was it Brian or Bill?
It was Bill.
Was it Bill?
Bill seconded.
Bill did.
Okay. Didn't hear it up here. 'cause
Right, I guess we'll
talk-
go on
talk
to
into
the
microphone.
reports. There's only really one. We have the zoning administrator's report. Does anybody have any questions on that? Your next commission meeting is April 24th, 2023 at 7 p.m. Carl, your report?
Thought you bypassed me, not a problem. Council meeting was held March 6, 2023, here at Town Hall. We first held a public hearing on ordinance 2022-32, which was the MXU and CC zone. I'm just going to give the highlights on things that we dealt with that were related to planning. We took a vote on 2022-32 MXU CC zone, which was not adopted by the council. We also took a vote for a motion related to the rehabilitation and preservation of the Flatiron Building. The council approved that, so now the council is supporting the preservation of the Flatiron Building. This allowed the dedicated group of volunteers to move ahead with applying for grants. We scheduled a public hearing for the upcoming April meeting related to Ordinance 2023-1, which is the MXD zoning ordinance. And then I believe we also set a public hearing for Ordinance 2023-9, which was the wellhead protection for the April meeting. Everything else related to budget and other various ordinances. So that concludes my report. The next meeting is April 3rd, I believe approximately 6:30 to hold a couple public hearings.
Thank you. Yes, before we adjourn, I ask Larry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's not a lot of people left in the room, but I think that any of us could agree that the commission in this town that requires the toughest skin is the Planning Commission. And I appreciate every one of you for being on this commission and maintaining your integrity and doing what you feel is best for the town. And I greatly, greatly appreciate it. I'm here tonight to commend a person who has served for 12 years on the Planning Commission and has served 3 years as a Planning Commission chairman. Roxanne has also served in town on the Mount Airy Senior Task Force, and she also volunteers on the Maryland Planning Commissioners Association. She also volunteers all around town, and I know every time that I need something, Roxanne will pick up the phone and will help me out with anything that I need. And I greatly appreciate it. I also know most of the members of her family. I've worked with them through scouting for years. I haven't had a lot of work with your daughter, but certainly know Zach. Spent a lot of nights out camping with Zach, and we had a great time. And Mike is a wonderful man, and certainly enjoy being a scout leader with him. Roxanne called me a couple weeks ago, and the thought of continuing on the Planning Commission was weighing heavy on her mind. And it's always hard to leave something that seems to require continuous attention, so I get that. And we talked about it. And what she has informed me of is a willingness and a desire to move on from the Planning Commission for personal reasons. When I heard that, immediately I asked her if she'd be willing to move over to the Board of Appeals. That would give her a little more time to work on other things, but also keep her hand and her experience in the planning scenarios that come up all around town. And she is willing to do that, so I greatly appreciate it. I look forward to working with you, Roxanne, on the Board of Appeals. Peter Helt is excited to have you coming over. And I think you will do a tremendous job over there. And I thank you for all the time that you put in on the Planning Commission. And I wish there were a room full of people so we could all give you a hand.
Thank you.
And say thank you so much. I agree, Bill. Worthy of standing. All right.
Is your mic on?
Yes, it's on. The town of Mount Airy obviously is my passion. I lived here, I grew up here, I've seen the town go through many, many different cycles. I was here when it was absolutely vibrant. I was here through times when you could kind of drive your car straight through the main street and not hit anything. So I have extreme confidence in the commissioners, and they will do what they feel is right for the town, to help the town in its, there is in some growth, and that we all can work together and come out with good decisions. I think that we've made a lot of good decisions here, and I look forward to the commissioners doing their job. So at that, I'll stop. Meeting's adjourned.
Of course, you're always there for support. Great.
Yes, as a matter of fact, the MPCA does have a mentoring program for new and any planning commissioners that would like to be mentored, of which I am a mentor, and so is Bill. So if you have any problem, if you have any mentoring that you would like to, if you would like to be mentored, we'll mentor you.
Bill, you had something?
And because they're going to help on the charrette. And the downtown master plan project was facilitated in large measure by them. So this is another great opportunity for us. Secondly, on April the 4th, we have a candidate forum. There are 5 different individuals, including this gentleman, who are going to be running for 3 open town council seats. help spread the word. Make sure people know about that, because it's important that, that they come out and be educated on the credentials, the desire of each of those folks and why they're choosing to run.
Is that at the senior center?
That's going to be at the senior center, because we expect it will accommodate a larger crowd. Okay?
Did you say the times, too, Bill? It's from 6:30 to 8?
That's the time that's allotted for
Yes, thank you.
presentation and questions.
Thank you.
Well, actually, you need to get there before 6.
Yeah, so I believe the doors open at 6.
Is that going to be broadcast as well?
Yes, yes.
April 4th, right?
Yeah, Carroll Media Center will carry it on
Channel-
both analog and digital.
Channel 23 on your cable box.
Yep. All righty.
All righty.
There you go.
See y'all.
You're just going to run off, huh?
I'm going to run off into the sunset. I'll be around. I'm going to